When my 17-year-old daughter, Lily, was banned from my sister's wedding, I didn't argue. I didn't beg for an exception or try to reason with anyone. I just said we won't be attending. And that was it. My name is Charlotte Miller. I'm 39, a nurse practitioner living in Vermont. And I've been Lily's mom since she was 3. She came into my life with big, quiet eyes that seemed to study everything around her. She didn't speak much at first, just watched like she was still deciding if the world was a safe place. The first time she called me mom, I cried alone in the car after preschool drop-off. It meant everything to me. From the start, I made her a promise she would never feel unwanted in my family again. I thought I was doing okay with that promise. Until the wedding. My younger sister, Brittany, got engaged last spring. Big announcement, giant ring, and an Instagram caption that sounded like a bridal magazine ad. I congratulated her, of course. Lily even handmade her a card with paper bells and glitter, and so much effort it made my heart ache. Brittany smiled when she got it, said it was sweet, and then tossed it into the backseat of her car. I found it there weeks later, half crushed under a fast food wrapper. But Lily stayed excited. She kept looking up dresses online, asking if she should wear her hair up or down, wondering if she'd get to help with decorations. I could tell she was hopeful, nervous but hopeful. Then the invitation arrived. It was one of those heavy, glossy envelopes with gold trim. I opened it at the kitchen counter while Lily was doing homework at the table. It listed all the usual details: date, time, dress code. Then my eyes landed on the line that shifted everything. Adults only. 18 and over. Strictly enforced. No exceptions. I read it twice. Lily must see my face change, because she looked up from her notebook and asked, "She doesn't want me there?" I answered, "It's an 18 and over wedding." My voice was calm, but my hands were trembling. She was silent for a moment, then asked, "Is it because I'm adopted?" That question cracked something deep inside me. She didn't ask it with tears or anger, just a flat, tired tone, like it was a fact she'd long suspected. I said no, absolutely not. But I knew what she meant. I knew exactly what she meant. That wasn't the first time Lily had been made to feel like an outsider. It wasn't always obvious. It didn't come with yelling or cruel words. It came in subtler ways, like when my mom would refer to Lily as Charlotte's girl, instead of calling her by name. Or when Brittany would say your daughter, like Lily was some neighbor's kid tagging along, not her niece. I kept hoping it was unintentional. That maybe they were still adjusting. That if I explained enough times, smiled enough, stayed patient enough, they'd come around. But the signs kept piling up. Like the time we showed up to a family dinner and Lily offered to help in the kitchen. No one acknowledged her. Not a single word. She ended up standing near the sink, holding a plate of vegetables, unsure what to do. Or when we went to Easter at my parents' house, and every grandchild had a personalized basket with their name on it, except for Lily. Hers just said Happy Spring in generic font. She didn't say anything. She just held it and smiled politely. The way she always did. The first time I saw her truly disappointed was when she drew a picture of our family, me, her, and my husband, Eric, and gave it to my mom. It was a sweet sketch with bright colors and little hearts. My mom said thank you, placed it on the table. And that was that. Later that day, Lily asked why it wasn't on the fridge like her cousin's drawings. I didn't have an answer. I wanted to believe they just didn't realize how they were making her feel. But over time, I realized that wasn't true. When Lily was 6, she told my dad she wanted to be an artist. He chuckled and said, "You'll need to think about something more practical." When she was 8, she wanted to help plan a family debut, and Brittany told her, "That's cute, but maybe let the adults handle it." It was constant, not aggressive, not loud, just dismissive. And always enough to make Lily hesitate. I kept thinking I could fix it by showing up, by including them in her birthdays, her school plays, her life. But the more we showed up, the clearer it became. They never fully accepted that Lily was here to stay. Part of them, I think, still believed I'd eventually have my own child. That Lily was a temporary chapter, a kind of noble gesture they could applaud from a distance. As if someday they'd say, "Remember when Charlotte fostered that sweet little girl?" They never said it out loud. They didn't need to. And the wedding invitation confirmed it. It wasn't just a formality. It was a line in the sand. A message: she's not really part of us. Not where it matters. I didn't respond to the invitation. I didn't call Brittany or try to argue my case. I just went online and clicked not attending, no explanation, just no. The next day, my phone lit up with a message from her. Hey, just saw your RSVP. Is everything okay? Then another one. If this is about the age thing, I hope you understand. We're being super consistent with everyone. Nothing personal, right? Nothing personal. Except it was. Lily wasn't some distant cousin. She wasn't a coworker's kid or someone's plus one. She was Brittany's niece. My daughter. She was 17, not 7. She had made a card, picked out a dress, asked about hairstyles. She wanted to be part of it. And now all of that was being dismissed as a technicality. I didn't reply. A few hours later, my younger sister Melissa messaged me. Tessa said you're not coming. What's going on? Then my mother called. She never calls unless something is wrong, so I picked up with a sinking feeling. Charlotte, she said, I heard you're not going to the wedding. Is this really about the age limit? I said, Lily wasn't invited. I'm not going without her. She's almost 18. There was a pause. Then my mom said, it's not like she's a little kid. She's family. I waited. She didn't add anything else. No apology. No acknowledgement of how Lily might feel. Don't punish your sister over this, she added. It's one night. I didn't argue. I just said, we're not going, and I hung up. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. The group chat started buzzing. First it was Melissa. Can't believe you're making such a big deal over one rule. You always have to cause drama. Then Brittany. This isn't about Lily, you're making it about her. And finally my mom, with a long paragraph about forgiveness and family unity, and how hard it is to be in the middle. Meanwhile, Lily deleted the dress photos from her phone. She didn't cry. She just quietly erased the pictures like they no longer mattered, like she had expected this all along. And that more than the wedding, more than the texts, is what hurt the most. She wasn't surprised. She had already learned what I spent too long trying not to see. They never truly saw her. And deep down, she knew it. Time passed. The wedding came and went. No one apologized. No one brought it up again. It was like they expected everything to go back to normal. Like Lily's exclusion was a minor hiccup, not a deep wound. Then December rolled around. Every year I hosted Christmas. That had always been the tradition. I cooked. I cleaned. I bought extra folding chairs and pulled out the big table leaf from the garage. I did it all even when I was tired, even when I didn't feel like celebrating. Not this time. I didn't send invitations. I didn't start the group chat. I didn't plan anything. When my husband Eric asked, should I go ahead and order the chairs? I just shook my head. No extra seats this year, I said. He didn't ask questions. Lily didn't either. They both understood. But the silence, that's what got to them. Around mid-December, the messages started rolling in. Melissa. Hey, are we still doing Christmas Eve dinner at your place? Let me know what I should bring. Brittany. Of course. We'll be 5 again. Let me know if Lily wants anything special this year, if she's even going to be there this time. That one almost got me. If she's even going to be there this time. As if Lily had chosen to miss the wedding. As if her absence had been some dramatic teenage tantrum, instead of a deliberate exclusion. I didn't reply. Not to that. Not to any of it. For the first time in years, I didn't scrub the floors or decorate the mantel or stock up on wine. I didn't pretend. I didn't perform. And when they didn't hear back, they started calling. First it was my mom. I let it ring. Then Melissa. Then Brittany. Eventually, my dad left a voicemail. Charlotte, we just want to know what's going on. Your mother's upset. It's not too late to do the right thing. The right thing. As if the right thing was welcoming people who had excluded my daughter. As if feeding them dinner would erase the pain they never acknowledged. So no, we didn't host anyone that Christmas. Instead, we made lasagna in our pajamas. Lily baked sugar cookies in strange little shapes that barely held together. We watched movies, we laughed, we opened presents early, no one walked on eggshells. No one translated passive-aggressive comments. No one fell silent when Lily entered the room. It was quiet. peaceful, whole. And that's when I realized something. All these years I had mistaken tradition for love. I had confused obligation with connection. I thought that hosting meant I mattered. That being the one who held everything together made me part of something. But that Christmas, without the noise and the pretending and the weight of forced togetherness, I saw it clearly. Peace isn't quiet because nothing is wrong. It's quiet because nothing's being ignored. It was a few days after Christmas when it happened. Lily was curled up on the couch under her favorite blanket, sketching in her notebook. She always drew when she needed to process something, people, feelings, moments that were too big for words. I was folding laundry in the same room when she paused, pencil hovering over the page. Without looking up, she asked, "If I wasn't adopted, do you think they'd like me more?" My hand stopped moving. The question hit like a weight I wasn't ready for. I sat down beside her. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "they might have pretended better. But the way they treat people who aren't like them, that was never about you." She looked at me then, with those same big, serious eyes she had when I first met her. The kind of look that feels older than her age. A look that says she sees everything, even the things no one wants to admit. "I don't think I want them to like me anymore," she said. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't angry. It was calm. Final, like a choice she had made to protect her heart. And that was the moment I stopped waiting for an apology. I had spent so long trying to keep the peace, making excuses, hoping they would come around if I just stayed kind, stayed patient, stayed small. But my daughter wasn't small. She was strong. She was clear. And if she had the courage to draw a boundary, then I would have the courage to hold it. A few days later, my father called again. I didn't answer. He texted instead. "Your mother isn't sleeping. She feels like she's lost you. We know we messed up, but that doesn't justify shutting everyone out. That's not who you are." I stared at that message for a long time. That's not who you are. For a while, I used to wonder the same. I used to question whether I was being too harsh, too sensitive, too cold. But I think this is who I am. I'm someone who finally understands what she will and won't tolerate. I'm someone who knows that keeping peace at the expense of her child's dignity isn't love. It's fear, dressed up as loyalty. And I'm done being afraid. Then came the final blow. It was a voice message from Brittany, one of those carefully measured recordings where every sentence was wrapped in sugar but carried a blade underneath. "I just think it's sad, Charlotte. You always made such a big deal about how much you love Lily, but now it feels like you're using her as a shield. Like anytime someone doesn't treat her like royalty, you cut them out. That's not healthy. That's not parenting. That's obsession." I didn't listen to the rest. I deleted the message and blocked her number. Because if loving Lily fiercely, completely, without apology is considered an obsession, then so be it. Yes, I am obsessed. I am obsessed with showing my daughter that she deserves to be included, that she never has to earn love by being quiet, or polite, or easy to ignore, that she should never mistake tolerance for acceptance. I'm obsessed with protecting the one person who needed me the most, the one who never got the benefit of the doubt, the one who had to prove she belonged in a family that claimed to love her but never showed her how. And no, I don't regret it. I regret the years I stayed silent. The holidays I invited people who treated her like a guest in her own home. The birthdays where she smiled while others barely looked at her. The thank yous she said to people who didn't bother learning her favorite color, her hobbies, her laugh. I regret every time I tried to keep the peace instead of standing up for her. But not anymore. Lily doesn't ask for much, she never has. But what she needs, what she's always needed, is a mother who chooses her, every time. And that's exactly who I am. I'm not the keeper of family traditions. I'm not the peace negotiator, the event planner, the one who smooths things over so no one feels uncomfortable. I'm Lily's mom. And if that means closing the door on people who can't see her worth, then I will close it, gently, quietly, but for good. Because this isn't about revenge. It's about love. Love that doesn't shrink. Love that doesn't apologize for existing. Love that says you matter, and I will never let anyone make you feel otherwise. The new year came quietly. No countdown, no noise, just the three of us, me, Eric, and Lily sitting around the fireplace, playing a board game she got for Christmas, laughing at how bad we all were at it. And in that quiet, I finally felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for the next text, the next dig, the next awkward dinner. I wasn't planning how to balance the feelings of people who had made my daughter feel invisible. I was simply living, with my family, my real family. Looking back, there were so many moments when I could have spoken up louder, sooner. But healing doesn't always come with a grand speech. Sometimes it comes with one small change. Like saying no. Like not setting out extra chairs. Like letting the silence speak for itself. And when I think about Lily's question, do you think they'd like me more if I wasn't adopted? I still feel the weight of it. But I'm proud of her answer. I don't think I want them to like me anymore. Because that wasn't bitterness. That was clarity. That was her learning the most important lesson I could teach her. That love isn't supposed to hurt. That it doesn't ask you to earn your place. That it doesn't disappear when you make people uncomfortable by simply existing. So if you're listening to this, and you've been there if you've ever had to choose between peace and pretending it's okay to choose peace. It's okay to stop explaining. It's okay to stop hoping they'll change. And it's okay to protect your child, your heart, your peace, even if that means disappointing everyone else. Because the truth is, love that asks you to shrink isn't love at all. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've ever stood your ground for someone you love, tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. Like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, sometimes, silence is the loudest, most powerful truth you can give.
At 67 years old, I thought I had faced every kind of loss life could throw at me. I was wrong. One stormy afternoon, a tornado took my home in Maple Ridge, Kansas, the house where I had raised my son and buried my husband's memories. And when I drove to my son Evan's doorstep, hoping for comfort and safety, I was met with words that cut deeper than any storm. We need privacy. My girlfriend does not want you here. My name is Pauline Mercer, and this is not only a story about destruction, but about how love can return when you least expect it. When my own family closed the door, I reached for a number I had carried for 50 years. A faded card with the name of my first love, Graham Ellison. Nobody knew I still had it. I never thought I would call. But in that moment, alone with 3 garbage bags and a borrowed car, I dialed. The man who picked up was not just a memory. He was alive, successful, and still had the same steady voice I remembered from high school. And when he came to find me, standing in that parking lot with nothing left, he said 3 words that changed everything. You look beautiful. The afternoon began like any other Tuesday. I was in my kitchen in Maple Ridge, brewing tea the way I always did around 3 o'clock. The weatherman had warned about storms, but in Kansas that was nothing unusual. I had lived through dozens of spring tempests, but this time the sky shifted in a way that made my stomach twist. It turned a sickly shade of green mixed with black, a color I had never seen before. The air itself felt heavy, charged with something dangerous. At 3:15, the sirens wailed. Their pitch sliced through the calm of my kitchen. I grabbed the emergency radio and heard the words no one wants to hear. Large tornado on the ground, moving northeast toward Maple Ridge subdivision. That was my neighborhood. 10 minutes, maybe less, to decide what I could save from an entire lifetime. My hands shook as I pulled an old suitcase from the closet. I filled it with the essentials of memory, rather than survival. My wedding photo with Harold, our son Evan's baby pictures, my mother's pearl necklace. A few important documents, a handful of jewelry. 43 years of life reduced to what fit in one bag. The basement was dark, colder than usual, and I crouched in the corner clutching Harold's worn sweater. The sound that followed was like a freight train tearing through the world above me. Wood splintered, metal groaned. The house that Harold had once been so proud of struggled against forces far greater than nails and beams could withstand. And then, silence. A silence so complete it made my ears ring. When I climbed the steps again, my legs felt weak. Where my living room once stood, there was nothing but sky. My rose garden looked as if a giant blender had torn it apart. The kitchen table where Evan had done his homework was jammed into the broken wall of the garage. I stood in the ruins of my life, and for the first time since Harold's funeral 8 years ago, I cried. The next morning, I walked through the wreckage with an insurance adjuster, a young man who looked barely old enough to rent a car. He carried a clipboard, snapped photos with a digital camera, and never once looked me in the eye. To him, this was routine. To me, it was everything. After a short survey, he spoke 2 words that felt like a verdict: total loss. I swallowed hard. What does that mean for me? He cleared his throat and pointed at numbers on his sheet. Your policy covers $120,000 on the structure. With depreciation and deductible, you are looking at maybe $90,000. Maybe less, he said it the way a cashier announces the total at a grocery store. $90,000 to replace 43 years of living. I stared at the broken beams around me. $90,000 could not rebuild Harold's workshop. It could not replace my rose beds or the dining room where birthdays had been celebrated. It certainly could not give me back the feeling of safety that had vanished in one violent hour. I thanked the adjuster out of habit, though he had given me nothing but numbers. By the time Mrs. Patterson, my neighbor, helped me load my few belongings into her car, I had accepted a truth I did not want. I had no home. Just 3 garbage bags of clothes, 1 battered suitcase of photographs, and Harold's old toolbox that had somehow survived under a pile of debris. That was all. When Mrs. Patterson dropped me off, I sat in the borrowed car with my heart pounding. There was only one person I could call now, my son Evan, my only family left. I prayed he would open the door. Evan lived 45 minutes away in Overland Park, a neighborhood of wide streets, manicured lawns, and houses that all looked polished enough for magazine covers. Driving through felt like entering a world where nothing bad ever happened. My car smelled of mud and mildew, and I felt like an intruder carrying disaster into their perfect world. The house itself was beautiful, with white shutters and a red front door his girlfriend Sloan had picked. I hesitated on the porch with 3 bags at my feet. Before I could knock, the door opened. Evan stood there, tall, composed, wearing the same cautious smile he used in business meetings. Behind him, Sloan appeared almost instantly, her blonde hair pulled into one of those effortless buns that cost more effort than they admit. She wore white jeans and a silk blouse, and her eyes never left the bags I carried. "Mom?" Evan said, stepping aside. His voice held distance. I set my bags down in the spotless entryway, suddenly aware of the smell clinging to my clothes. Wet wood, mud, and something heavier: destruction. "It is only temporary," I explained, "just until the insurance clears and I find an apartment." Evan glanced at Sloan. In that silent exchange couples have, the decision was already made. "Let's sit and talk," he said, leading me into a living room so pristine it felt more like a showroom. White sofa, glass tables, windows so clean they disappeared. I perched on the edge, careful not to leave marks. Evan leaned forward, his tone rehearsed. "Mom, we need to be honest. Sloan and I value our privacy. We work long hours. This house is our sanctuary." Sloan added gently, "It is not about trouble. It is about space. You would be more comfortable somewhere else. An extended stay hotel, maybe." Evan nodded. "I could help with a few hundred to get you started." The words felt like a door closing. Not welcome. Not here. Not home. I drove away from Evan's house with tears burning behind my eyes, though I refused to let them fall until I was alone. Mrs. Patterson's borrowed car rattled as I parked in a Walmart lot on the edge of town. The sun was setting, turning the sky orange over rows of shopping carts and streetlights that flickered away. This was not home, but it was the only shelter I had. That first night, I leaned the seat back, clutching Harold's toolbox like it could keep me safe. I barely slept. Every time a car pulled in or a security guard's truck rolled past, I froze, afraid they would notice the 67-year-old woman living out of a vehicle. By morning my neck ached, my clothes smelled stale, and I could not bring myself to look in the mirror of the restroom where I washed my face. The second night was worse. My cash dwindled to less than $100. I bought a gas station sandwich that tasted like cardboard and loneliness. I brushed my teeth at McDonald's, avoiding the pity in strangers' eyes. Pride kept me silent, but inside I felt hollow. By the third night, shame had settled into my bones. I shuffled through my purse searching for coins and found something else instead. A faded business card, edges soft from decades of being carried. Graham Ellison. His name printed in blue ink, a number underneath I was not sure still worked. On the back, in my own 17-year-old handwriting, I had written 4 words. "Do not forget me." I sat there staring at that card, my heart pounding. I told myself it was ridiculous. 50 years had passed. He had surely built a life, a family, a world without me. And yet, in the darkness of that parking lot, I whispered his name like a prayer. On the 4th morning, Exhaustion pushed me past pride. I held the card in my hands, trembling, and finally dialed the fated number. It rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, deeper now but still familiar. "Morrison Development, this is Graham." My throat closed. For a second I nearly hung up. But something in his tone, warm and steady, gave me courage. "Graham, it is Pauline. Pauline Mercer." Silence stretched, long enough for me to fear he did not remember. Then he said my name again, softly like he was touching a memory. "Pauline." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. My house was destroyed in the tornado. Evan does not want me with him. I have nowhere to go. I am in a parking lot in Tulsa. "I am sorry to bother you after so many years," he interrupted, firm but kind. "Tell me where you are." "I am coming now." I tried to argue, but he only repeated himself. "Pauline, give me the address." "I am already walking to my car." 2 hours later, a silver sedan pulled into the lot, moving slowly between rows of vehicles. My heart hammered as I recognized him the moment he stepped out. 50 years had added silver to his hair and lines to his face, but his storm-gray eyes were the same. He walked with quiet confidence, scanning until his gaze landed on me. When he reached my window, he smiled and tapped gently. "Hello, Pauline." I rolled the window down, ashamed of my wrinkled clothes and tired eyes, but he looked at me with nothing but tenderness. "You look beautiful," he said, and for the first time in days I let myself believe I was safe. Graham loaded my 3 garbage bags and Harold's old toolbox into the back of his car, as if they were treasures. He opened the passenger door for me, his movements calm, deliberate, leaving no room for argument. The drive felt unreal. We passed rolling hills and neat neighborhoods until we turned through iron gates marked Prairie Creek Way Estates. His driveway curved beneath tall oaks and ended at a stone house with wide porches. It was elegant, not flashy, a home built to last. He showed me to the guest wing. The bedroom was larger than my old living room, with windows overlooking gardens and a bathroom with a soaking tub. I stood awkwardly, afraid to disturb anything. Graham only smiled. "Make yourself comfortable, Pauline. This house has been too quiet for too long." The first week, I tiptoed through the halls like a guest. But Graham was patient. Slowly, we fell into a rhythm. In the mornings, he brewed coffee while I sat on the porch watching finches dart among feeders. In the afternoons, we walked his property where he showed me the greenhouse where he raised orchids. In the evenings, we cooked together. He moved easily around the kitchen, but when I prepared a pot roast from an old family recipe, he said it was the best meal he had tasted in years. No one had appreciated my cooking like that in a long time. One night by the fireplace, Graham told me he had once proposed to another woman but called off the wedding. I asked why. He met my eyes and said simply, "Because it was not you." For the first time since the storm, I felt I could breathe again. It did not take long for Evan to notice that I was no longer calling from motels or shelters. One afternoon my phone lit up with his name. "Mom, where are you staying? Miss Patterson said you left the extended stay place." I hesitated. "With a friend," I answered. "A friend?" His voice carried disbelief. "You do not have friends with money?" I bit back the sting of his words and said calmly, "You would be surprised." From that moment the calls came more often. At first he asked polite questions about my health, but soon the conversation always drifted to Graham. "What kind of business is he in? How long have you known him? Does he have investments in Kansas City?" The curiosity was less about me and more about opportunity. Sloane joined the effort in her own way. Expensive candles arrived at the door, then gourmet chocolates, then a silk scarf. Each gift came with a card written in her careful hand. "So happy you have found love again. Hope we can start fresh," but every package felt like a peace offering with strings attached. 0. At dinners, Evan tried to reinvent himself as the devoted son. He told stories of how grateful he had always been for my sacrifices, how he admired my strength. He smiled warmly, but his eyes kept straying to Graham, measuring him, weighing possibilities. I sat across the table, listening, knowing it was revisionist history. Graham never called him out directly, but under the table he squeezed my hand, steady and reassuring. His quiet message was clear. "I see what is happening. You are not alone." One evening Graham told me he had invited Evan and Sloane to dinner. His voice was calm but firm. "It is time we clear the air, Pauline." I spent the day anxious, unsure what he planned. When they arrived, Maria served a beautiful meal, and for a while conversation stayed light. But once coffee was poured, Graham leaned back in his chair and spoke with a steadiness that left no room for doubt. "I want to talk about expectations," he began. "Evan, you have shown a new level of interest in your mother since she came to live here. You ask often about my business, my investments, my plans. But I remember the night Pauline had nothing and needed a place to stay. That night you and Sloan said you needed privacy. You called this house your sanctuary. You closed the door on her. Evan shifted in his chair, his face flushing red. That is not fair, he muttered. Graham's voice never wavered. What is not fair is to treat your mother as a burden when she is struggling, and as an asset now that she is secure. If you wish to be part of her life because you love her, you are welcome. But if you are here because of what you think you might gain, then you are wasting everyone's time. The room fell silent. Sloan stared at her hands, her lips pressed tight. Evan looked at me, then at Graham, his jaw clenched. For once he had no practiced lines. Graham's words had drawn a line in the sand, a line that finally placed me at the center, not the edge, of the story. 6 months after the storm, Graham asked me to marry him. There was no dramatic proposal, no ring hidden in champagne. He simply took my hands one morning on the porch and said, "Pauline, I do not want to spend another day without knowing you are my wife." My answer was yes before he finished the sentence. We chose a quiet ceremony in his back garden. The October air was crisp, the trees brushed with gold, and the sky clear as glass. I wore a simple blue dress Graham said matched my eyes. He wore a charcoal suit that made him look distinguished and strong. Our witnesses were Maria, the housekeeper who had become a friend, and Thomas, his longtime business partner. Inviting Evan was the hardest decision. I told Graham I was unsure, but he gently reminded me, "He is your son. You will regret not giving him the chance." So I called him. "Evan, we are getting married on October 15th. You are welcome to come, but Sloan is not invited." His silence lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally he said, "Mom, you hardly know this man." I answered quietly, "I have known him longer than I knew your father when I married him." On the day of the wedding, Evan arrived alone. He was polite, reserved, and watched carefully. But when the minister pronounced us husband and wife, I felt lighter than I had in decades. This time the vows were not about performance, they were about truth. After the wedding, life settled into a rhythm that felt both new and deeply familiar. Graham and I shared mornings over coffee, afternoons in the garden, evenings by the fire. For the first time in years I hummed while cooking dinner, my heart lighter with every passing day. Evan began calling again, but his tone had changed. Instead of questions about Graham's business, he asked about my roses, about whether I had joined a book club, about how I was feeling. The conversations were shorter, less polished, almost genuine. It was not the closeness I had once dreamed of, but it was honest. And perhaps honesty was a stronger foundation than forced affection. Sloan disappeared from the picture. No more packages on the doorstep, no carefully worded cards. It was as if she had decided that if she could not control the situation, she would remove herself entirely. Part of me was relieved. Part of me was sad that her only connection to me had ever been through calculation. I looked at my son differently now. He was still the boy I had rocked through fevers, the young man I had supported through college. But he was also a man who had made choices that revealed his flaws and his limits. I could not rewrite him. All I could do was accept what he was willing to give, and protect the peace I had finally found. When I look back now, I see the tornado differently. At first it was pure destruction, ripping away everything familiar. But in time I realized it had also cleared space for something new. Losing the house taught me what was load-bearing in my life and what was just decoration. Love, dignity, respect, those were the beams that truly held me up. Living with Graham showed me that age is no barrier to beginning again. He did not see a burden or a broken woman. He saw someone worth cherishing. His steady presence reminded me daily that love is not about drama or grand gestures. It is about showing up, listening, and choosing each other again and again. With Evan, the relationship is not perfect. Perhaps it never will be. But it is real now, not a performance. That alone is progress. I no longer measure my worth by how much space I take up in his life. I measure it by the peace I feel in my own. The storm tore apart my old world, but it gave me a chance to build another. And sometimes, when you lose everything, you finally discover what you truly needed. If this story gave you hope, please like, share, and tell me your city in the comments below. I am Nora Bennett, and I remember the moment my world shifted like it was carved into stone. I was in the kitchen, lining up spice jars, when my phone buzzed in my apron pocket. I almost ignored it, thinking it was just another reminder or a message about groceries. But curiosity won. I swiped the screen, and in seconds, a voice I trusted revealed a truth that nearly broke me. It was Megan, my daughter-in-law. Her tone wasn't sweet or polite. It was sharp, dripping with contempt. And the words she used about my son, Adam, cut me deeper than I thought possible. She called him boring, useless, not worth her time. She mocked the man who worked every day to keep their home together. She even hinted at sabotaging him at work so she would have an excuse to walk away. That night my heart froze. By the next morning I knew one thing for certain. I needed a plan. A plan Megan would never see coming. Before I tell you how everything unfolded, you need to understand the life we had built. The ordinary rhythm that made the betrayal sting so much more. My name is Nora Bennett, 62 years old, a woman who found comfort in the familiar routines of her small kitchen. Every evening I set jars back on the wooden shelf, brewed coffee, and waited for my son Adam to come home from work. He was 35, steady and dependable, always carrying a bag of pastries from the little bakery down the block, the same place I used to buy his birthday cakes when he was a boy. Life had not been simple for us. Adam lost his father when he was 12, and I was left to raise him alone. I stitched clothes for neighbors, sold tamales in the morning market, and ran a tiny store at night. Every dollar I earned went into his education. The day he walked across the stage with his university degree in hand, I cried like a child. That was the day I felt all the long nights and aching hands had been worth it. So when Adam introduced me to Megan, I thought my prayers had been answered. She was warm, polite, even called me Mom. I believed she would treasure him the way I did. The day it happened began like any other. I was tidying up the kitchen when my phone buzzed with a new notification. It was from Megan, my daughter-in-law. That alone was unusual. She lived under the same roof with us, and if she needed anything, she usually just said it aloud. I thought perhaps she wanted me to pick up vegetables or milk. Without thinking, I tapped on the screen. It was a voice message, and before I realized what I was doing, I accidentally saved it to my phone. When I opened the app again, the message was gone. Almost instantly, Megan typed, "Sent that by mistake." "Did you hear it, Mom?" I hesitated, my heart pounding. Something inside told me not to confess. So I replied, "No, dear." She answered only with a thumbs-up emoji. I sat down at the table, still holding a salt shaker in my hand. My fingers shook as I opened the audio file. Megan's voice filled the room, but it was not the sweet tone she used with me. It was sharp, mocking, filled with annoyance. She called the other person bro, and I realized she was talking to her brother Tyler. Then came the words that pierced me like a knife. "Adam is so boring, so useless. He never makes enough money for me to live the way I deserve. I can't stand being with a man this mediocre anymore." My chest tightened as I kept listening, each phrase colder than the last. I sat frozen in that wooden chair, clutching the phone as if it were a snake ready to strike. My first instinct was to believe I had misheard, that stress had twisted her words. But when I replayed the message, the same cruel sentences rang out again. Megan's voice was unmistakable. There was no error, no misunderstanding. She was openly despising my son, the man who adored her. For a moment I considered storming into her room, confronting her, demanding an explanation. My blood burned with anger, but another thought stopped me cold. If I acted out of rage, I might destroy Adam in the process. He loved her too deeply, trusted her too completely. An outburst would make me look bitter, jealous, or even unhinged. I couldn't risk it. I pressed the phone against my chest and whispered a silent promise to myself. No public scene. No shouting. Document, don't detonate. I needed to stay calm, gather proof, and protect Adam without tipping Megan off. Just then, I heard the iron gate creak. "Mom, I'm home," Adam called cheerfully, holding a bag of pastries, his smile as wide as a summer morning. My heart shattered. How could he smile with so much love while the woman he trusted was sharpening knives behind his back? The next morning began like any other, but I carried a storm inside me. I set the table for breakfast toast, eggs, and fresh fruit, while Adam read the newspaper. His face lit up as he spoke. "Mom, I have an important meeting today. If the report is approved, I might finally be considered for that promotion." His eyes sparkled with hope. My heart swelled with pride, but when I glanced at Megan, I caught something else. A flicker of irritation crossed her face before she quickly plastered on a syrupy smile. "That's wonderful, honey," she said, though her voice carried no warmth. Later that morning, as I scrubbed the stove, I heard Megan whispering on the phone. "You leave it to me. Adam definitely won't turn in the report on time. I've already handled it." My breath caught. Every nerve in my body screamed that she was setting another trap. By noon, Adam was frantic. Papers were missing from his briefcase, the very documents he needed for his meeting. He turned the house upside down, his voice breaking with panic. "Mom, I can't find them anywhere." Megan stood in the corner, arms crossed, feigning surprise. "Maybe you left them at the office," she suggested innocently. That was when I saw it, a stack of papers sticking out from between the sofa cushions, hidden carelessly. My heart pounded, but I kept my face calm. "Adam, could these be them?" I asked, handing the documents to him. Relief washed over his face as he hugged me. Megan's smile faltered, her eyes flashing with annoyance before she turned away, pretending to scroll her phone. That evening, I couldn't hold the weight of the secret any longer. My chest ached from silence, so I walked next door to see my neighbor and dearest friend, Joyce Miller. She had known Adam since he was a boy and had stood by me through every storm. We sat on her porch, the summer air heavy with the scent of lilacs. My voice trembled as I told her everything, the voice message, the words I had overheard, the papers hidden in the sofa. Joyce's eyes widened, and she gripped my hand firmly. "Nora, you can't let her keep doing this. But don't act rashly. Gather proof. Protect Adam first. The truth will come out, and when it does, you'll need to be ready." Her calm strength steadied me. I knew she was right. The next morning, I made another hard decision. I called Henry and Diane Price, Megan's parents. They were good, respectable people, and I hoped they would listen. We met in a quiet coffee shop, the kind with small wooden tables and the smell of roasted beans filling the air. After a few pleasantries, I placed my phone on the table and pressed play. Megan's voice spilled out, sharp and unrecognizable from the polite tone her parents knew. "Adam is boring, useless. If he loses his reputation at work, I'll finally have an excuse for divorce." The words cut through the silence. Diane's face drained of color, her hand flying to her mouth. "My God, no," she whispered. Henry clenched his fists, his jaw tight. From Tyler, I could expect this. But Megan? His voice cracked with both anger and shame. They looked at me with sorrow in their eyes, and in that moment we agreed no more excuses, no more cover-ups. Adam had to know the truth. Even with Megan's parents on my side, I knew it wasn't enough. Words between families could be denied, twisted, or brushed aside. I needed something undeniable, something that would carry weight outside our walls. That's when I thought of her workplace. Megan was employed at a communications agency, and her direct supervisor, Dana Whitaker, had a reputation for being fair but firm. That night, I sat at Adam's old computer, the glow of the screen lighting my tired face. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I drafted an email. I kept my words simple and respectful. No anger, no insults, just the truth. "Dear Ms. Whitaker, my name is Nora Bennett. I am the mother of Adam Bennett, husband of your employee, Megan Price. I am writing to share a recording I received by accident. I apologize for the intrusion, but it is a matter of ethics." Then I attached the audio file. When I pressed send, my heart pounded as if I had set something irreversible in motion. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. "Mrs. Bennett? This is Dana Whitaker. I've listened to the recording. Could you tell me more?" Her voice was steady but carried a weight of disappointment. I explained briefly how Megan had mocked Adam, plotted with Tyler, and even hidden his work papers. Dana listened without interruption, then sighed. "Thank you, Mrs. Bennett. This confirms suspicions I already had. I'll handle it from here." The following afternoon, a text arrived. "Megan Price has been terminated for violations of professional ethics." My knees went weak with relief, though I knew this was only the first step. Although Megan had lost her job, I knew the battle was far from over. Adam still lived under the illusion that his wife was loyal, and until he saw the truth with his own eyes, he would keep giving her his heart. That was what I feared most, so I decided there had to be a moment, a carefully chosen time and place when the truth would be revealed. Adam's birthday was just around the corner, and the family gathering I had already planned felt like the right setting. Everyone would be present: Megan, Tyler, Adam's friends, and even her parents. There would be no running from what had to be faced. In the days leading up to it, Megan behaved as if nothing had happened. She laughed louder than usual, fluttered around the house, and even tried on a bright red dress in front of the mirror. "What do you think, Adam? Do I look stunning?" she asked with a sparkle in her eyes. Adam smiled, ever faithful, and told her she looked beautiful. I stood quietly in the kitchen doorway, forcing myself to keep a neutral face. The night before the party, I checked everything twice. My phone was fully charged, the recording safe in its memory. I even printed out my notes, dates, and details, tucking them into a sealed envelope. As I set it all aside, I whispered to myself, no shouting, no fighting, just the truth. Tomorrow, the masks come off. The afternoon of Adam's birthday arrived, warm and bright, though inside my chest a storm raged. The kitchen filled with the smell of moles simmering on the stove, Adam's favorite since he was a child. I plated tamales, carefully arranging them on a large dish, forcing myself to keep my hands steady. Guests began to arrive, filling the house with chatter and the rustle of coats. Megan floated down the stairs in her red dress, hair curled, smile wide. She looked every bit the devoted wife, but I knew better. Her parents, Henry and Diane, slipped in quietly, their faces strained with worry. Joyce arrived carrying a bottle of wine, catching my eye with a nod that said, "I'm here." Dinner began, plates clinking, conversations weaving around the table. Adam was radiant, telling stories from work, his laughter carrying through the room. Each word pierced me because I knew he didn't yet see the danger seated at his side. Megan laughed too loudly, placing her hand on his arm as though nothing in the world could divide them. Halfway through the meal, I rose from my chair. My knees trembled, but my voice stayed calm. "Before we continue, there's something important I need everyone to hear." The table fell silent. I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapped play, and set it on the table. The room filled with Megan's voice, sharp and dismissive. "Adam is boring, useless. If he fails at work, I'll finally have an excuse for divorce." Tyler's voice followed, smooth and scheming. "Don't worry, I'll introduce you to someone better. And when Adam stumbles, I'll slide into his position myself." The air grew heavy. Adam's fork slipped from his hand and clattered onto the plate. His face turned pale as he stared at Megan. She shot up from her chair, shouting, "This is a setup. You edited my voice." But Henry slammed his fist on the table. "Enough, Megan. That's your voice. And you know it. We won't cover for you." Diane buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Tyler's grin faded, his eyes dropping to the table. Adam's lips trembled. His voice came out low, broken. Was it all a lie? He turned to me, his eyes desperate, searching for answers. I reached for his hand, cold and shaking. "Son, you loved honestly. That is never foolish." Megan straightened, defiance flashing in her eyes. "Fine, I want a divorce. I don't need a man like you." Tyler muttered, "We're done here," and pulled her toward the door. The sound of her heels striking the floor echoed like gunshots until the door slammed shut. Silence blanketed the room. The truth had finally been spoken, but the damage lay bare across my son's face. The house remained still after the door slammed shut. The laughter, the clinking of glasses, all of it had vanished into an aching silence. Adam sat motionless, staring at the empty plate in front of him. His shoulders slumped as though a weight too heavy had finally crushed him. I wanted to gather him into my arms, to shield him like I did when he was a boy, but I knew I couldn't take away this pain with a simple embrace. Joyce quietly rose from her seat, poured a glass of water, and placed it gently in front of Adam. "Drink, son," she whispered with the tenderness of a second mother. His hand shook so violently that the water spilled onto the table. He didn't drink, only stared at the glass as though searching for answers in its ripples. Henry stood and placed a firm hand on Adam's shoulder. His voice was grave but sincere. "This is not your fault, Adam. My children brought shame into this house. You gave your heart, they chose betrayal." Diane, still weeping, murmured apologies through her tears, her voice cracked with shame. I sat beside my son, wrapped an arm around him, and whispered, "You are not foolish for loving. Real love is never a mistake." He said nothing, only leaned into me like a man holding on to the last steady thing in his world. In the days that followed, the house felt hollow. Adam moved quietly through his routines and I kept close, though words between us were scarce. Then one morning at the market I overheard whispers. Two vendors leaned close as they sorted vegetables. "That Price girl is moving from place to place. She left most of her things behind, living out of 2 suitcases. Another woman chimed in, shaking her head. "The rich man her brother promised. Already in the papers for fraud. Married with kids too. Nothing turned out the way she bragged it would." I stood by the tomato stand, my basket heavy in my hand, listening as their words sank in. Megan had chased a dream of wealth and status, but all she caught was emptiness. Tyler, too, had disappeared from view, keeping quiet after his schemes fell apart. I felt no triumph, only a weary sort of justice. Their choices had carved their own downfall. And while it didn't erase Adam's pain, it reminded me of something simple yet profound. Lies unravel themselves, eventually. Time passed slowly, like rain seeping into dry earth. The house no longer rang with Megan's false laughter or Tyler's swaggering voice. Instead, silence settled in, heavy but cleaner somehow, like a wound finally free of poison. Adam was not the same as before. How could he be? At first, he moved through his days like a shadow. He went to work, came home, ate in silence, and sat staring at nothing. I worried, but I didn't push. Some hurts can't be rushed. Gradually, small changes appeared. Adam stayed later at the office, pouring himself into reports and projects. I overheard colleagues calling him, praising his integrity, his reliability. Each time, his eyes lit up just a little. He began to whistle again, not the carefree tune of before, but something softer, more thoughtful. The quiet in our home no longer felt empty. It was the sound of rebuilding, the beginning of a man piecing his life back together one steady step at a time. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the porch in shades of gold, I heard the gate creak open. Adam stepped in, but this time he wasn't alone. Beside him walked a young woman in a simple blue dress, her hair tied back neatly, a woven basket of fruit in her arms. She smiled warmly, her eyes bright and sincere. "Good evening, Mrs. Bennett. My name is Claire Brooks. I'm an elementary school teacher. Adam has told me so much about you." Her voice carried no performance, no forced sweetness, just genuine kindness. I welcomed her inside and we shared dinner together. She asked about the recipe for Adam's favorite mole, listened attentively to his stories, and even rolled up her sleeves to help me clear the table. When I ran out of water, she refilled my glass without being asked. When Adam mentioned a work report, she leaned over gently, offering thoughtful suggestions. I watched from across the table, heart swelling with quiet relief. This wasn't a woman chasing status or money. This was someone who saw my son, truly saw him, and valued the man he was. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to believe that healing was not only possible but already beginning. Looking back, I often ask myself how I missed the signs. The truth is, red flags rarely wave like banners. They whisper instead, small comments, sudden silences, little shifts in how someone treats the person they claim to love. With Megan, the warning lights were there: contempt in private paired with charm in public, a hunger for status over stability, and subtle efforts to isolate Adam from his own success. I wanted to believe the best, so I ignored what my instincts already knew. If there's one lesson I want to share, it's this: do not dismiss the whispers. Document them. Keep a timeline, save messages, notice patterns. Protecting someone you love doesn't always mean rushing into battle. Sometimes it means gathering truth carefully, step by step, until it cannot be denied. And remember, no matter how painful, boundaries are an act of love. When you name the wrongs clearly and calmly, you are not destroying family, you are protecting the heart of it. Lies may spread quickly, but truth has a way of standing steady and unshaken when everything else falls. Love is patient, but it should never be blind. Protecting those we care for sometimes means making choices that tremble in our hands. I learned that truth, spoken calmly and clearly, is stronger than any secret whispered in the dark. If you have ever stood in my place shielding someone you love from betrayal, know this: courage opens the path to healing. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it resonated, please like, share, and subscribe. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Your words might be the light another soul needs tonight.